My younger siblings, now in an orphanage."
"I'm sorry to hear that."
The Earl's brow furrowed. I then paid a visit to the children's home, only to learn that my brothers and sister have been shipped off to Canada as indentured workers without my mum's knowledge. Growing restless, Quinn wished he had leave to warm himself by the flames in the fireplace. Since his time in the trenches, he couldn't get used to the constant dampness that seemed to perpetually seep through his bones. Unfortunately, my mother is in ill health. I fear she'll not last the summer. Visions of his emaciated mother had haunted Quinn for the 4 years he was away at war. He never imagined her looking even frailer than when he left. But when he'd found her, bedridden, in a workhouse infirmary upon his return, he knew he had to do something. Quinn suspected guilt played a large part in her listlessness, as though she deserved to die for abandoning her children. If he could find Becky, Cecil, and Harry, and bring them home, it might give his mother a reason to get well. She didn't deserve this life of hardship solely because her husband had died prematurely. Heaven only knew Quinn had tried his best to help her over the years, sending almost every shilling he earned back home to care for the family. To find out now that it had all been in vain was beyond excruciating.
"So, you're asking for leave to find your siblings?"
The Earl studied him from behind the enormous desk.
"Yes, my lord." "And if I refuse your request?"
Quinn resisted the urge to look away from the man's direct gaze. "Then I will respectfully have to resign my position, though it would pain me to do so."
"It would pain me also."
Lord Brentwood shifted on his chair and leaned forward.
"Whereabouts in Canada will you be going?"
"I'm not sure of the exact location. The ship lands in Halifax, Nova Scotia. From there it will depend on where my brothers and sister were sent. I haven't been able to discern that information as of yet." Quinn clenched his hands into fists against his rising agitation. He still couldn't believe the director of the Dr. Barnardo's homes wouldn't give him any information other than the name of the ship and the landing point in Halifax. Quinn shoved one hand into his pocket until his fingers met the familiar iron key he carried with him everywhere, the last thing his father had given him before he died. It had been the key to their family home in London, and by giving it to Quinn, his father had effectively bestowed upon him the title of head of household. The cool metal reminded Quinn of the promise he'd made and gave him the boost of courage he needed to continue. "If it's too much to ask that you hold my position, I'll certainly respect your decision, sir. But this is something I have to do. I won't rest until my family is back together again." The Earl nodded.
"A sentiment I understand all too well."
A shadow crossed the man's features, and for a moment, real anguish flashed in his eyes. To Quinn's chagrin, he realized he'd not even inquired about the Earl's family and how they had fared since Quinn left for the war. "I trust Lady Brentwood and Lady Amelia are both well."
"They are. Thank you for asking."
He paused.
"My niece, on the other hand, is a different story."
"Miss Julia." Quinn sucked in a breath at the memory of the vivacious girl. She'd come to live with the Earl and his family at the age of 13, following the sudden death of her parents. After an appropriate time to grieve and become accustomed to her new home, Julia had eventually found solace in the company of her cousin Amelia, and the squeals of girlish laughter often rang throughout the halls of Brentwood Manor. "I hope nothing dire has happened to her."
"Not in the way you're thinking, but bad enough."
The Earl pushed up from the desk.
"Julia insisted on helping with the war efforts, against my wishes, I might add. She went off to aid the medics with the wounded soldiers, a task no proper young lady should undertake."
"Having been a wounded soldier myself, I think it a noble undertaking. I know I appreciated any help I received." The Earl shot him an annoyed glance. Quinn almost bit his tongue. He would have to get used to keeping his opinions to himself when they were not asked for.
"I had a feeling nothing good would come of it."